with a reading of Mysticism, which is quite a sophisticated, compact book. And as we know, we had read that the great religion, invention, and work of art always owes its inception to some sudden uprush of intuitions or ideas from which the superficial self cannot account, its execution to powers so far beyond the control of that self, which they seem, as their owner sometimes says, to, quote, come from beyond. This is inspiration, the opening of the juices so that these waters of truth in which life is bathed may rise to the level of consciousness. The great teacher, the poet, the artist, the inventor never aims deliberately at his efforts. He obtains them, he knows not how. Perhaps from a contact of which he is unconscious, with that creative plane of being which the Sufis call the constructive
You should do that. Put
spirit.
That straight line.
And the Kabalist Yesod, which both postulate as lying next behind the world of sense, sometimes said that great Alexandrian Jew Philo, here's a quote from Philo. Do you know Philo? Quote, when I have come to my work empty. So he starts out empty. When I come to my work empty, assuming he had meditated a long time, I have suddenly become full. Ideas being in, I can't see in, I can't read this way.
The opposites again.
The ideas, this manner showered upon me and implanted in me from on high, so that through the influence of divine inspiration, I have become greatly excited and have known neither the place in which I was, nor those who were present, nor myself, nor what I was saying, nor what I was writing. For them I have been conscious of a richness of interpretation and enjoyment of light, a penetrating insight, a most manifest energy in all that was to be done, having such an effect on my mind as the clearest ocular demonstration would have on the eyes. This is a true creative ecstasy, strictly parallel to the state in which the mystic performs his mighty works. To let oneself go, be quiet, receptive, appears to be the condition under which such contact with the cosmic life may be obtained. I have noticed that when one paints, one should think of nothing. Everything then comes better, says the young Raphael. Of course, Raphael to Da Vinci. Wow, Raphael is a great artist, and so is Da Vinci. I have noticed that when one paints, one should think of nothing. Wow. The superficial self must here acknowledge
like meditation. You just don't
its own insufficiency, must be. It's all about how to paint by Raphael. We're reading about painting now.
No, you're reading about emptiness.
Come to the humble servant of a more profound, vital consciousness. The mystics are of the same opinion. Let the quietly and wisely understand, says St Teresa, that it is not by dint of labor on our part, that we can converse to any good purpose with God. Quote, the best and noblest way in which thou mayst come unto this life, says Eckhart, is by keeping silent and letting God work and speak, where all the powers are withdrawn from their work and in images. There is this word spoken, the more thou canst draw in all thy powers and forget the creatures, the nearer art thou to this, and the more receptive. Thus Boehme says to the neophyte, quote, when both thy intellect and will are quiet and passive to the expressions of the eternal word and spirit, when thy soul is winged up from that which is temporal in the outward senses, and the imagination being locked up by holy abstraction, then the eternal hearing, seeing and speaking will be revealed in their blessed blessed art thou, therefore, if thou canst stand still from self-thinking. This is like reading the cloud or something, the cloud of unknowing. Self-thinking and self-willing, and canst stop the wheel of thy imagination and senses. And then the conscious mind being passive, the more divine mind below the threshold organ of our free creative life can emerge and present its reports, in the words of an older mystic, the soul leaving all things and forgetting herself. My gosh, forgetting, is immersed in the ocean of divine splendor and illuminated by the sublime abyss of the unfathomable wisdom. Wow. The passivity of contemplation. You think contemplation is passive, or passivity of contemplation is a necessary preliminary of spiritual energy. Wow. An essential clearing of the ground. It withdraws the tide of consciousness from the shores of self, stops the, quote, wheel of the imagination. Quote, the soul, says Eckhart again, is created in a place between time and eternity. With its highest powers, it touches eternity, which is lower time. These, the worlds of being and becoming, are the two stages of reality which meet in the spirit of man. By cutting us off from the temporal plane, the lower kind of reality, contemplation. Contemplation gives the eternal plane and the powers which can communicate with that plane their chance. In the born mystic, these powers are great and lie very near the normal threshold of consciousness. He has a genius for transcendental, or as he would say, divine discovery, is much the same way as his cousins. His cousin is divine discovery?
Read the paragraph that I
What?
missed.
By cutting us off from the temporal plane, the lower kind of reality, contemplation gives the eternal plane and the powers which can communicate with that plane their chance. In the born mystic, these powers are great and lie very near the normal threshold of consciousness. He has a genius for transcendental, or as he would say, divine discovery. In the same way as his cousins, the born musician and the poet. They're like cousins.
Which is cousin? Them?
Musician and poet is a cousin to a mystic. So now we know who the family is and the cousins are. They're cousins. If I'm a musician and a poet and a mystic, does that make me cousins? I have a genius for musical or poetic discovery. In all, 3 cases. The emergence of these higher powers is mysterious, and not least so to those who experience it. Psychology, on the one hand, theology on the other, may offer us diagrams and theories of this proceeding, of the strange oscillations of the developing consciousness, the fitful visitations of the lucidity and creative power over which the self has little or no control, the raptures, the griefs of the vision, by turns granted and shone. But the secret of genius still eludes us, as the secret of life eludes the biologist.
Say it again. The secret
Of genius eludes us.
Yeah.
And interesting, the secret of genius is eluding us. The secret
of life to the
this woman rank this writer ranks a little higher than I think she's known to. The secret of life, the way she's able to sum things up.
Yeah, she's very intelligent.
The secret of genius still eludes us, as the secret of life eludes the biologist, which is true.
Yeah, it is the same surprise in a way to pass from the one to the other. To understand one of the other.
We read to page 34 and 33 and 34, I guess, and we're reading about mysticism. We're reading Evelyn Underhill's 12th edition, Mysticism, Psychology, and
Spacesuit soul.
yeah, that's true. We're reading Evelyn